Well, hello. Welcome back. Great to have you. Good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you're listening from.
Or however you're listening, car, phone, boombox maybe, who knows?
I'd like to see that.
I'm sure it's a possibility.
Well, Taylor, are you a true crime fan?
I would say so, yes. Jen, yourself, I know you are.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm born and raised in Walla Walla, Washington, of course, so I feel like it's in my bones.
And for those not familiar, that's where the Washington State Penitentiary is, so all sorts of colorful characters, to say the least,
Yeah,
living in Walla Walla.
crime history, that's for sure. Beautiful place, though. I love it there. Now it's wine country. It's wonderful. But yeah, true crime fans, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, well, today we're catching up on this episode with newlyweds Chad and Lori Daybell. But there is now a string of deaths and an attempted murder surrounding the couple. They tied the knot in Hawaii about 2 weeks after the death of Chad's ex wife, and just a few months after the last time Lori's children, JJ and Tylee, were last seen alive. Now, nothing is linking them to a crime just yet, but it certainly has the attention of police now more than ever before. And that is after a phone call from a concerned grandmother helps unravel a mystery with a very grave discovery. This is One Foot in the Grave. It's November 25th. Lori and Chad have been married just 20 days. They got married in Hawaii and are now back home in Idaho. It's at this time that police in Arizona, they receive a call from JJ's grandma, Kay Woodcock, concerned about his well-being. It's the last place she knew he was living. She had no idea that Lori had moved the family from Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho in early September. And that's because JJ's grandma, she lives out of state in Louisiana. Despite living several states away, though, the Idaho State Journal reports Kay and her husband Larry Woodcock still remain very close with JJ. They cared for him for the first 10 months of his life before Lori and Charles adopted him. However, Kay tells police it's been months since they've seen or heard from the boy despite repeated attempts to get in touch with him. So police get on it. They quickly discover there is no sign of JJ in Arizona. So they call police in Rexburg, Idaho, where Lori and Chad are now living, to do a welfare check. Rexburg police agree to help. Now they meet Chad and Alex, Lori's brother, outside Lori's apartment. It's the same apartment Lori shares with JJ and Tylee. Alex also moved with Lori to Rexburg and lives in the same apartment complex. She's just in a different unit. When questioned by police, Chad at first says he doesn't really know Lori that well, his wife, and doesn't even have her phone number. Meanwhile, Alex told police JJ was in Louisiana with his grandma, the same woman who called for a welfare check. Police say Lori is also found at the unit. She eventually comes out to speak with police. She tells officers JJ is in Arizona. So this, of course, is setting off a red flag for investigators because none of these stories are matching up. And it's later that night, while police are still investigating JJ's whereabouts, that family members say Lori and Chad skipped town. While police had enough suspicion, they returned to the apartment the next day, this time with a search warrant. And they say when they get there, Lori's apartment is basically cleaned out, but they do later find some of the kids' belongings in a storage locker. Airplane records show a few days later, this is December 1st, Chad and Lori flew back to Hawaii. But they're not exactly off the radar. Police in Hawaii at this point are keeping an eye on the couple. They kept surveillance on the couple's condo for the next month and report never seeing any sign of the children. So at this point, police have a string of disappearances connected to the couple. An attempted murder in the family circle. Remember, Lori's niece's husband says someone tried to kill him in a drive-by shooting? And then, of course, there's the untimely deaths of both Chad and Lori's former partners. It is enough suspicion that on December 11th, authorities order Tammy Daybell's body, Chad's ex-wife, to be exhumed. This is less than 2 months after being laid to rest. And they order toxicology testing on the cause of her death. But there's more. Just 24 hours later, in the midst of that investigation, another death takes investigators by surprise. Just one day after Tammy's body is exhumed, Lori's brother Alex suddenly dies. And a medical examiner later ruled that he died of natural causes. They say it's a blood clot in his lung.
And again, keep in mind, this is the same man who shot and killed Lori's husband. He's also the same person to be pictured with Tylee the last time she was seen alive, and the man who was implicated in a plot to kill his niece's ex-husband in a drive-by shooting.
Yeah, and this is certainly not the last time you will hear his name pop up in this investigation. Now, it is finally after this string of mysterious deaths and disappearances that police a few days later publicly report the kids as missing. Now, a reminder, this is December, and the kids disappeared in early September.
And this is really where a lot of us in the public, those of us in the media, start to kind of get clued in with all of this. So, going off that, there are a few more players we want to introduce you to. That's Larry and Kay Woodcock. We mentioned them earlier in this episode, but again, they're the grandparents of J.J. Vallow, and Kay is Lori's sister-in-law. Charles Vallow was her brother. Since it became widely known that the kids were missing, the Woodcocks kind of became arguably the most visible family members to speak out about the case. About a month after Rexburg police issued a public cry for help finding the children, the Woodcocks became involved and offered up a $20,000 reward of their own.
So we're asking the public, please, for God's sake, anything anybody needs, please step up, call authorities, call the fire station, call the police station.
This is from a press conference in January 2020 where the Woodcocks are talking about the reward. They traveled from their home in Louisiana to speak with authorities in Idaho, and this press conference, it's pretty compelling. Larry and Kay Woodcock are both calm and reserved, but you can tell they're sincere. They look like they're in their late 60s or in their 70s. The Woodcocks appear to be very down to earth. Larry Woodcock has a trimmed gray beard and is wearing a plaid shirt. Kay is actually wearing some plaid as well. The Woodcocks go on to say that they last spoke with JJ in August 2019, and they described that up until that point, they'd often cherish their moments with the children and speak with JJ over FaceTime often.
And all I want before I go is just to see those children, and especially, and I'm being greedy, especially my boy JJ, my little man. And I just want to hear him beat on the drums. I want to hear him say, Papa, let's go ride.
The Woodcocks also offered some very interesting insight to reporters about Lori Vallow. They say that Lori was originally a devoted mom, a great mom, in fact. And they said Charles Vallow was a good parent too, and that he and Lori were great parents together. And the kid's disappearance? JJ's grandparents say they're blindsided by all of this, telling reporters they never thought this would happen and Lori would turn into this kind of mom. Here's Kay Woodcock.
How do you not know where your child is, number one, so she says, and how do you not have them for 4 months? What kind of mother does that? A mother, the only word that is coming to my mind right now is a monster.
So again, bear with us, this can get a little confusing. Kay Woodcock is technically the sister of Charles Vallow, Lori's late husband. So Lori is her sister-in-law. She is also JJ's biological grandmother, though. JJ was born to Kay Woodcock's son and the son's girlfriend, but according to reports, the Woodcocks pretty much cared for JJ in his early years.
It takes nearly 1 month after the official announcement the kids are missing for authorities to give Lori a warning. This is now late January. She has now 5 days to bring her kids to court. The same kids who have been missing for 4 months at this point. Now the deadline, it came and went with no sign of the kids. And police also served Chad and Lori with a search warrant in Hawaii, which is still under surveillance. When authorities searched the condo, though, they didn't find any evidence the kids ever lived there. There are no toys anywhere, and the guest bedroom is basically untouched.
So it's during this time in Hawaii when we get a look at some pretty good video that comes from EastIdahoNews.com. They had a reporter there when Vallow and Daybell were being served with a search warrant.
Lori Nate Eaton with East Idaho News. Can you tell me where your kids are? Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
This video shows the reporter approaching the couple as they're in a parking lot. It looks like a black SUV that the couple had been driving was being towed away as evidence. And as you watch this video, it's pretty clear that neither Lori Vallow or Chad Daybell want to talk.
Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What?
In this video, which is a couple of minutes long, that's pretty much the only response Lori Vallow gives to the reporter. They keep their heads down and just keep walking, and they're dressed casually, and Lori's wearing sunglasses, keeping them on the whole time. And yeah, Jen, as you watch this video, it's like the couple can't get away from this reporter and his photographer fast enough.
And this is the video I feel like a lot of people saw. This kind of went viral online. It just seems like odd behavior for a parent whose kids have been missing for several months. If you're a parent, I would imagine you'd say, I'm missing my kids. Where are they? Put out public pleas. Very nonchalant. They're not answering questions. That's their right to stay silent.
Yeah.
But it's the video that a lot of people saw online, I feel like, that made this story huge because there's just not a lot of reaction or urgency in finding these kids. It appears that there's not much concern that they're missing. So another month goes by. We're now in February. The couple is still in Hawaii and have now been there for nearly 3 months free, but they are now the focus of an increased national media attention. Again, family members say Lori and Chad skipped town back in November when police in Idaho did a welfare check on the kids. She had already been ordered to show her kids in court in late January, and she missed that court date. But it still takes until February 20th before the investigation catches up to the couple. Kauai police arrest Lori for failing to follow the Idaho court order to prove her kids are alive, and she is extradited back to Idaho.
Se permite fumar en las áreas designadas.
Now that is Lori stepping off the plane in Idaho. It was warm in Hawaii, and getting off the plane in Idaho is a startling difference. It's gray, it's cold. And my first takeaway here is that she's wearing a sweatshirt with Kauai written across the front. And to me, it's something like you might pick up on vacation. It looks like a tourist shirt that you would buy at the airport or a surf shop. She's escorted off the plane and into a waiting SUV. A judge puts her in jail with a $5 million bond, while Chad remains free. He actually even travels back to Idaho and attends one of her court hearings. Despite repeated pleas from investigators, Lori keeps her silence and doesn't reveal the location of her children. But soon, with a little help from technology, investigators would have their answer.
So in winter 2020, while all this is going on, we also begin hearing from another family member.
I feel ignored. I feel angry.
That's Colby Ryan. In a nutshell, he's Lori Vallow's eldest son and half-siblings to Tylee and JJ. And like everything else in this story, it's a little confusing how he fits in. So Colby was born in the mid-90s to Lori and her second husband, but that marriage only lasted a couple years. Colby's last name, Ryan, the same as Tylee's, comes from Lori's third husband and the biological father to Tylee. Colby is in his mid-20s, he's an average-looking guy, he's clean-cut, and he too starts to ask his mother where his younger siblings are.
I want you to show them and step up and just do the right thing. And that's what I've been praying for.
This is from a YouTube video Colby posted in early 2020. He appears to be at his home, sitting on a couch, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and a backwards ball cap. These clips are from after the deadline passed where Lori was supposed to show Tylee and JJ to authorities. And Colby, he gets a little emotional in these videos, asking where his siblings are.
And that's all I want right now. That's all I want is to see the kids and for this situation to have some type of closure.
In subsequent interviews Colby would end up giving, it's pretty clear he's not pleased with his mom. He wonders why she's not being forthcoming. And an interesting side note, Colby told a Phoenix TV station that initially following the death of Charles Vallow, Lori told Colby that Charles, his stepdad, had died of a heart attack and was not shot and killed, as was apparent to investigators at the time. He certainly was frustrated about that deception.
Meanwhile, detectives continued their search for the missing children. In early January, authorities searched Chad Daybell's property for clues, but It's the middle of winter. It was covered in snow, so that didn't turn up any leads. Now, in early March, they turned their focus back to Yellowstone National Park. That's the last place, or you might remember, Tylee was seen alive. They had a picture from September 8th they lifted from Lori's iCloud account. Now, the picture shows Tylee. She's looking at the camera. She's actually holding JJ, and his hands are around her neck, and she's holding him around the waist. They're standing in front of a thermal pool. It's a really sweet picture of the two together. It's just cute siblings. And their uncle Alex is also in the image, though he's off to the side with his hands in his pockets, not looking at the camera. So based on this and no evidence Tylee ever left the park, authorities zero in on this area. But it's large. It's nearly 2 million acres in size. It's wooded, there's rivers, there's thermal pools, and there's a lot of remote areas. CBS News reports that while these thermal pools are not boiling, many of them have the acidity of battery acid. So if there were evidence in these pools, or let's say perhaps a body, it likely would dissolve quickly. But experts say where they were pictured is a pretty public area. So the chances of something nefarious happening and some evidence being in one of those thermal pools is not great. Also keep in mind too, this is the middle of winter in the Rockies. There is snow on the ground, it's freezing out, so it makes any sort of search extremely difficult. The FBI, though, does go on to ask everyone who visited the park on that same day to turn in their photos and videos in hopes of learning more about where the family traveled that day, but not much comes of it. In a few weeks, we're now in early April, investigators reveal Lori and Chad are now under investigation for the murder of Tammy Daybell. Now, documents obtained by East Idaho News show the Idaho Attorney General is investigating both Daybell and Vallow for murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy in Tammy's death. Sources told CBS News that Alex may also be linked to Tammy Daybell's death. However, he died before he could be questioned. Remember, he died one day after her body was exhumed. Now, as of this recording, we are still waiting to learn the results from the toxicology report on Tammy's body. By mid-June, authorities get a break in the case that they've been looking for. They reveal, though, they have made a grim discovery, answering the question that has plagued them for the past 10 months. Where are the kids, and are they alive?
It's here, the newest, easiest must-have app for everything Spokane.
We've got quite the noisy scene here on
Breaking news, the moment it happens.
We are tracking breaking news this morning.
Hyper-local accurate weather alerts.
Standpoint checks in at
More stories to uncover, more videos to discover.
It is time to get in the backyard and do some
Personalized for you. The all-new KREM 2 app, now available in the App Store.
It is June 9th, 2020. A stunning affidavit shows investigators took the cell phone data from Chad, Lori, and the unexpected player in this, Lori's brother, Alex, from the moments when the children disappeared. Pings from Alex's cell phone place him with Lori and the kids at Yellowstone on September 8th. Again, that's the last time Tylee is seen alive. At 2:40 a.m. the following morning, pings show Alex inside his sister's home. Now, investigators say this is significant because not only is he there in the middle of the night, it's the only time he is in his sister's apartment between midnight and 6 a.m. the entire month of September. Remember, they live in the same apartment complex. They just live in different units. But that same day, his phone is also pinged in Chad's backyard for 2 hours. Police say Alex also made an identical trip on September 23rd, one day after JJ was last seen alive. Investigators used the locations of the phone to develop locations of interest on Chad's property, which includes a pet cemetery that sits next to a fire pit and a second location near a pond. They get a search warrant and quickly notice disturbed ground near the pond. Upon digging, they find several flat rocks, some paneling, and then they're hit with a strong odor. They find a black plastic bag in the ground, and when it's cut open, it exposes brown hair on the crown of a human head. An autopsy later reveals the little body wrapped in the tight plastic bag bound with duct tape is that of 7-year-old JJ.
Absolutely awful.
Horrific circumstances, and of course, not the discovery they were hoping to make. Now, crews also searched the area of the pet cemetery. Forensic experts on scene, they find bones from household pets, but also under a pile of bricks, they find human bones. They also find, along with that, charred human bones and charred human tissue. And they say the remains are dismembered and are badly damaged, but they are able to identify them as 16-year-old Tylee. Now, this is such a depressing end to this story where so many people were hoping the kids may have been cooped up somewhere. I had been reading stories about their disappearance for 6 months on the news, and when this news broke, it just felt like there was this collective gasp and disappointment to the search. There were so many theories online about where the kids might be. Some speculated they were being kept away from society in a private church group, maybe some type of cult perhaps, but I think a lot of people were also clinging to that, as slim of a chance as it might have been, just hoping they were found alive. Authorities, though, have yet to say how JJ and Tylee died.
I mean, it's back in the mind for all of us, like this could be a possibility, but you just don't think it happens. You think it can't be happening. You hope for a better outcome.
Yeah, you're just really hoping after months and months and these theories, maybe it's true, maybe there's some, sliver of hope out there. So a lot of people, of course, disappointed by this outcome. But there's a few things that I want to point out in this investigation. I think there's some great detective work here. But this morning when Alex first visited Chad's property, Chad texted his wife, Tammy, saying, quote, "I spotted a big raccoon. One shot did the trick. He's now in our pet cemetery." So this tells us, one here, this puts him and Alex in the same spot on his property, right?
Correct.
2, cell phone records showed Chad texted Tammy he shot the raccoon sometime during the morning while burning debris in the nearby fire pit. So that may not seem that significant, but listen to this. So raccoons are nocturnal animals. So the chances of him seeing one in the daylight is a pretty fat chance.
Yeah.
So it's, again, alarming red flag perhaps. Also, I found this to be interesting. According to Tammy's obituary, her family described her as this full-blown animal lover. Not just cats and dogs, your household pets, but all animals. They say she raised pigeons, chickens, cats, rabbits, knowing each one by name, but she especially loved ducks. Now, you tell me this, what animal lover is okay with killing an innocent raccoon?
Yes, you make a good point there. And another thing that I kind of worry about is I could see this going both ways. If you have a cemetery devoted to your pets, animals you've loved, you've named, why put a raccoon that you shot and killed spur of the moment in that cemetery? On one hand, granted, you could say all animals, the same. We want to treat them with respect. At the same time, though, it's like you might be viewing raccoon as kind of a vermin. Why put it in this same cemetery with your beloved pets?
Yeah, and in this day and age, and especially for how Tammy's family describe her, I mean, she's naming pigeons, things, ducks, things that aren't your household pets. These are just animals out in nature. What would make a raccoon any different? But if you're also a full-blown animal lover, I mean, don't you see those animals as your kids?
Why being okay
they're
with
a family
your husband
member.
Killing it, yeah.
Yeah, they're a family member. So it just seems odd from what her family describes her as and this situation between the two. Now, court documents show this entire time during the recovery of the children, Chad was nearby. He was actually on a property across the street watching it all play out. And authorities say he actually started driving away from the area, but police quickly pulled him over and arrested him. Authorities charge both Chad and Lori with 2 felony counts of conspiracy to destroy, alter, or conceal evidence. And they say the 2 worked together, along with the now deceased Alex, who worked as their henchman to get rid of the kids.
Now, following the discovery of the bodies, JJ's grandparents and Tylee's extended family released statements saying they're just heartbroken and say the 2 kids were stolen from them. Here's JJ's grandpa, Larry Woodcock, speaking with neighbors and reporters outside the Daybell property in Rexburg not long after the bodies were found. A heads up, it's a little hard to hear.
This has torn up so many people. It's destroyed people. It's torn up whole homes, and there's no need for this.
He also goes on to say that all the stress has put undue strain on their family, and they have basically cut off communication with Chad and his grown children. He says they haven't spoken to the kids for months and have no idea where they are. He adds, some in our extended family are still struggling to accept the reality that Chad could have been involved in something so terribly wrong. He says he and his wife have been in contact with JJ's grandparents and will support them in an effort to learn the truth about what happened. Not exactly a ringing endorsement, right?
Yeah, this is his own family, but to give benefit of the doubt, this is also the brother that says that they've been distancing themselves from Chad for quite some time because of his books and his extreme religious beliefs, and he says that that part of their family has almost burned that bridge for some time.
Now, while this is also going on, Tammy's family also released a statement. They say they share the pain of tremendous and shocking loss. They say they are suffering and will continue to suffer for many years to come. And they add, as matters move through the judicial process, they hope justice will be swiftly served. Tylee's aunt releases a statement too. She says Tylee and JJ won the hearts of people across the globe, continuing to say she has experienced both the worst and best of humanity.
The case has investigators trying to learn why anyone might want these 2 children dead and what caused their untimely deaths, along with the mysterious death of Chad's first wife, Tammy. And will it reveal something more sinister at play? As court proceedings begin and Lori and Chad await trial, it begs the question, will this crime receive an equal punishment? We take this case straight to experts in Idaho, where capital punishment is still very much legal.
Additional sources for this episode of One Foot in the Grave include CBS News, the Idaho State Journal, postregister.com, MSN, and Tegna, with music by Jason Gray.